Bakelite furniture was tested in England in 1934 for resistance to saturation and gas attacks, but it was found to warp and fracture under pressure. Australia also considered Bakelite furniture in early 1942 for the 303 SMLE rifle, however it was for a different reason. Brian Labuda and I catalogued SAF Lithgow's museum collection in the mid-1990s. We recorded a 1920 A-series SMLE rifle with Bakelite furniture, with minor damage from user tests. That original rifle had been stripped and Bakelite furniture fitted for evaluation early in World War II. It is now on display at the Lithgow Factory Museum. Decades later, when visiting New South Wales, I was asked to examine a similar prototype or experimental Bakelite Australian SMLE in a protective skin from a Melbourne estate. A few months ago, we were fortunate to acquire this 1941 Bakelite Lee-Enfield for its new owner in Queensland. Decades before, I had cut the synthetic skin from the underside of that Lee-Enfield with scissors. Given that it was over 90 years old, the composite skin had become brittle and broke easily on removal. The bare Lithgow barrel action and fittings were sent to a Bakelite factory in Western Melbourne early in 1942 to measure up for moulds to produce and fit the synthetic furniture. Metal parts are a mix of 1941 Lithgow and early Bathurst production. Rifle Factory No. 3 at Orange did not start until after April in 1942. Our opportunity last month to study it more closely and disassemble it revealed some surprises regarding both the original components sent from Lithgow in early 42 and the new Bakelite butt, fore-end and handguards. BA mark components are the action body, bolt and bolt head, trigger guard, trigger and sear, butt swivel bracket, swivels and the rear sight protectors. These Bathurst manufactured parts were then sent to Lithgow for assembly. It was not until 1943 that Orange took over final assembly. The action body and bolt assembly was made and proofed at Bathurst, and this appears to have continued with the actions and proof at Bathurst until the end of the war. Early in 1942, the Melbourne Bakelite factory assembled the metal parts and new furniture, but the rear sight protector wings are on back to front. The butt stock bracket is on the wrong way around, and its locking bolt safety is missing the washer. Urgent demands for Vickers and Bren guns for the war in Europe saw Lithgow farm out rifle production to Bathurst, 40 miles away. New buildings were erected at Stewart Street, Olympic Way, on the road to Blaney. Machinery at Lithgow was shifted there from August 1941, and production started at Bathurst on the 24th of September 1941. However, rifle assembly was still being done at Lithgow until 1942. Bathurst Rifle Factory No. 2 parts are marked BA. Lithgow parts were stamped MA from 1926. This was the telegraphic code Mash Arms Lithgow, abbreviated from Machinery Armament, MA. Feeder factory annexes were set up to make parts for rifles and machine guns in towns west of Lithgow. The Orange Rifle Factory No. 3 was OA, while other annexes used the town name first. Parks was PA, Forbes was FA, and so on. The reasoning for Bakelite furniture here related more to storage than for use in the jungle. Bakelite handling was more slippery in the wet, and Slassinger's output from Sydney then met demands anyway. Brian suggests it was more likely for cache storage underground, because timber is susceptible to termite or white ant damage. Plans for the Brisbane line were for forces to defend a line drawn between Brisbane and Adelaide, and so equipment dumps were being established. However, after the Japanese Imperial Army was forced back along the Kokoda Track by the end of 1942, and their naval forces beaten by the end of that same year, the need for underground dumps to defend mainland Australia was shelved. This timeline is consistent with the end of the Bakelite rifle furniture requirement here too. Another feature that supports Brian's supposition is the reasoning behind the synthetic skin seen on the sample here. It was impervious to moisture and also to termite attack, whether stored at ground level or even if it was buried. This is yet another fascinating chapter of Australia's World War II history.